All right, and welcome to Fast Break Breakfast NBA podcast. My name is Keith, here alone for a solo interview episode discussing the red-hot Denver Nuggets. Well, they're not actually red-hot. They actually lost to the Suns pretty recently, but they're in first place in the West, and they're fun to talk about. They're having a great season, unlike my favorite team, which just gave up 57 points to James Harden. I'm very sad, but enough of that. If you're buying tickets this season, or just anytime soon, go to SeatGeek.com. They collate all of the best ticket prices. They find them from all the other ticket sites to show you what the best deal is, so you're not missing out. You can buy with confidence that you're getting the best possible deal. And if you use our code FASTBREAKBREAK, just like the Twitter handle, you get $20 off. So you're certainly getting the best deal. So if you're going to a basketball game, a hockey game, a concert, comedy, anything, check out the market on SeatGeek.com to see what the ticket prices are. Find your best deal, and then use our code FASTBREAKBREAK to get $20 off that purchase. Also, if you want more Fast Break Breakfast stuff, we've been experimenting more with video. We are old and slow to adapt to some technology, but we've been experimenting with some live video stuff over there for our Patreon supporters. Eventually going to open it up to everybody, we hope. But we do treat our Patreon supporters to some stuff like the Slack chat and the Negative Fantasy Basketball League at Fantrax.com, and some bonus content. It all goes up at patreon.com/fastbreakbreakfast. If you've been listening to us for a while, you kind of feel like you owe us at least $1 to help keep this thing going. So if you want to support us, patreon.com/fastbreakbreakfast. All right, let's talk some Nuggets. My guest today is site manager for Denver Stiffs, Bill Simmons' favorite blog, and is host of Locked On Nuggets, friend of our show, Adam Mares. Adam, how's it going?
Oh, it's going so great. I am glad that I've now started a beef with the most powerful man in all of sports media, so that's great.
What can go wrong?
You know what, though? I think he's sneaky becoming a Denver Nuggets fan. It's happening. It's all across the country. People are falling in love with the Denver Nuggets.
It's long overdue, if you ask me.
Yes.
I have to jump ship, I think, because they're becoming too popular.
Yeah, that's the real fear.
Now like, oh, everyone listens to Bon Iver. Oh, I'm out on Bon Iver. That's well, they won a Grammy. I never actually liked them.
I don't know how I feel about the Nuggets being the Bon Iver team. I was hoping he could go somewhere else, but I'll
Fire.
take it.
I remember when Arcade Fire was cutting edge.
Yeah, there you go. Bon Iver. By the way, love them. But I don't know if that's like the cool. I don't know the cool.
I'm showing my age. This is that I was whatever. I was 25. I'm like, oh, I like this. This is chill. This is what the hipsters were listening to now. And now, now the Denver Nuggets, everyone's on them. Bill Simmons is singing their praises. Anyway, Adam, what'd you have for breakfast?
Oh, God. I only had a cup of coffee, which I almost never drink coffee. But today my breakfast was just that. It was very sad.
I like you went with, oh, God.
I can't believe I forgot to prepare for that
by
eating
okay.
breakfast this morning.
Okay.
I let you down.
It's no worries. I look behind the curtain for our listeners. I asked you to do this like an hour ago. So you had no way to prepare a breakfast. No, but so the Nuggets, things are going great. Is this the best season the Nuggets have ever had? And I don't mean that as a joke. Like isn't this technically the best season the Nuggets have ever had?
Well, technically, yes. I think it's tied right now record-wise. But you just look at this team. It's so fun. And you're right. Denver hasn't had the greatest history. They have 2 runs to the Western Conference Finals and a boatload of first-round exits, and that's pretty much it. And this team, who knows what the playoffs hold for them. But just in terms of excitement and promise and where this team is, I think a lot of people saw this team having this type of season 2 years from now. Maybe next year if things broke right. But for the fact that they are off to the record that they are, but also just winning the way, like convincingly winning against so many good teams, I think there really is an argument to be made that this team could go up toe-to-toe with just about any of the other great teams that have come through Denver.
Well, I think Mark Stein pointed out that this team has been in first place for 45 days of the season so far. That seems like a pretty high in Nuggets history. I don't.
It's got to be, but that's one of those things that has more to do with where everybody else's record is. I mean, if the Warriors were off to their 45-3 start or whatever they were 2 years ago, this wouldn't have been the case. But you know what? I'll take it. I will take the Denver Nuggets being the team out in front because it turns out it's a lot of fun to be that team.
So in the preseason, you were very optimistic about this Nuggets team. I was less of an optimist, even though this is like my second favorite, my side piece team. I just, I thought they were bringing the same team back, and I thought maybe it just wouldn't work out as well. I knew they'd been pretty good last season when they were all healthy, like when Gary Harris and Paul Millsap were playing alongside Jokic and Murray. But I had my doubts. But obviously, it's gone great so far. Is this team winning for the reasons that you were optimistic? Or are there other reasons that you didn't see coming that have led to this team being in first for so many days?
I didn't see their defense being as good as it was over that first month. It's regressed quite a bit, I think mainly because Paul Millsap was out, and turns out he deserves like 90% of the credit for the team's defense. So I didn't see that part of it. But what's interesting, you talk to people on this show, you always have people on covering their team. And when teams are really bad, the people closest to them seem to be lower on them. And when teams are either average or good, people seem to be higher on their team because you see the potential. And I think you overstate the potential because you think, oh, if they could just play like this all the time, they would be great. Well, I think that's what, I was drawing off of with this Nuggets team is for the last 2 years, and especially towards the end of last year, you saw a little bit of consistency with the good Nuggets, not the bad Nuggets. And you thought, man, if this team could just be that 75% of the time, their offense is unstoppable. Jokic is dominant. Jamal Murray has his moments. You see all that stuff. And so you think, okay, if they just put that together, it'll be great. And how likely a team is to put that together, I think that's the part that analysts tend to overstate. Well, fortunately for me, I'm looking like a genius because Nikola Jokic has looked like the best version of himself 90% of the time this season. And more importantly, the team is they're getting into the flow of their offense. They're a very rhythm team, and they're getting into the flow of that offense almost every single night now to where we're only getting the good version of the Nuggets, at least offensively. So things have just broke to where they're realizing their potential, I think, a lot sooner than anybody anticipated.
And also, I think one of the strange things for me watching them is when you look at their stats, Jamal Murray, Gary Harris, and Nikola Jokic are shooting not well from the three-point line. They're all at like 33% or less. This D is definitely knocking down. So one things that hasn't been going, I guess, great, or I mean, maybe it's benefited them is injuries. I was going to say, have the injuries to this team actually been that blessing in disguise that helped this team kind of figure out its strengths?
I think there's no doubt about it. And they're going to have some bumps now because Gary Harris coming back, Will Barton is back in the lineup. There's bumps now between reintegrating those guys and the style of play, the minutes, the rotation, those things all change a little bit. But the blessing is, first of all, they've been able to maintain the number one seed. I think if they were like the 6th seed right now, it'd be so hard for them to climb up just because of how competitive the West is. But the fact that they're the number one seed now and they're finally getting healthy for the first time since opening night, I think that bodes really well because the chemistry between Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray, the team has been forced to rely on those two a lot more than I think they anticipated this season. And in October, it was okay. In November, it looked a little bit better. In December, I thought they really hit their stride. And over the last 6 weeks or so, those two have just been on such a great chemistry, especially in the final 5 minutes of games. One of the questions surrounding Denver was they play this pass happy style of offense that's beautiful to watch for 45 minutes, but the final 3 minutes or so, teams lock down, the game slows down. Well, Denver has developed a 2-man game between those guys that lends itself very nicely to end of game offense. And that's the part that I think now as you bring guys back, for the first 45 minutes, you have more weapons. The last two, you space the floor and you allow those guys to continue to grow that chemistry. And that's where the blessing in disguise lies.
when the team gets fully healthy, I guess the common question that everyone has watching them is it going to be too many mouths to feed? Like, is Monte Morris going to get squeezed out of the lineup? One of the big surprises of the year, a really solid player. Will Barton, Gary Harris, when they're both healthy, like, where do those minutes go? So what's your opinion, or how do you turn away those critics who might be like, it's going to be hard to integrate all these guys and keep everybody happy?
Well, first of all, I don't turn away any critics. Jokic has been this like controversial figure online, and his first 2 seasons, it was like I felt like I was talking back and forth with people online, and no, he's actually good, this or that. The last 2 years, I've just thought, I don't need to do this. Everybody will see eventually, so I'm just going to let it play out and let everybody's takes exist online. But it is a real question. First of all, I don't anticipate Isaiah Thomas playing this year.
I forgot. I forgot he was on the team, Adam.
The team. Yeah, exactly. The team hasn't really. They've been really tight-lipped about his return date and all this stuff, and it's made me wonder if they might just trade him at the deadline and say, you know what, this isn't the spot for you. We thought it was, and so go on. So assuming that part, I think Monte Morris and Mason Plumlee, their roles stay largely the same. They played a ton of minutes, and they're still the backup center and backup point guard. After that, I think Malik Beasley has earned the minutes, but then you're talking about Torrey Craig, Juancho Hernan-Gomez, and Trey Lyles. I think only one of those guys plays, and I'm not sure who it is. I would guess it's Torrey Craig, but that's where the crunch comes in. Juancho and Trey Lyles, both very young players with, I think, some promise, but unfortunately, the team, it's one of those good problems. They're just too deep and too good that somebody can't play, and I think it'll be them.
So you think it's going to – are we going to still see – Millsap, he's still coming off the bench, right?
Millsap is starting.
Oh, he is starting.
Millsap is starting now.
I don't think I've seen the start of a Nuggets game in like the last couple of weeks. I switch over. I start East Coast, go Central Time, Mountain Time.
That's so smart.
I work my way over. So he is starting, and he obviously has been one of the keys when he's been healthy. His 2 years, their net rating is always really great with him. One thing we criticized, I criticized Mike Malone for in years past, was pairing Jokic with another center. And it's been with Mason Plumlee, and now it's dominating people. Just on Sunday night, there was a big highlight making the rounds of the 2-man pick and roll game.
Ridiculous.
Jokic getting the dribble handoff, and then doing like him receiving it and throwing the alley-oop. Anyway, what is different this year about that combination of Jokic and Plumlee, where we were deriding Mike Malone and he was on the hot seat, and we're like, why are you forcing Jokic to play with another big? Right. He's so skilled. And this year, you're like, oh yeah, no one can stop that.
It's funny because if you go back to last year, they ran that lineup starting with Millsap going down just 1 month into the season, and it really looked ugly until about mid to late January. I think it was January 22nd was actually the date that Malone said, I've been trying to over-orchestrate the offense in part because they're forced to play some of these weird lineups with 2 centers, and he felt like he had to do all this stuff to set the table. But what he's learned a little slower than I would have liked over his 4 years, but I think he fully grasped this idea now, is that Nikola Jokic is like Peyton Manning. He doesn't need an offensive coordinator. He doesn't need somebody calling plays from the sideline. He is the quarterback. He's going to call the plays. He is the point guard. And Malone has stepped aside and just trusted him to orchestrate the offense. And I think what he's done is he has, first of all, taken control of the ball rather than kind of sharing it with Mason Plumlee and sharing playmaking duties. He's just told him, hey, you're a screener and rebounder in this offense. Mason Plumlee has accepted that role, which I think is one of the most underrated aspects of this team. A starter on a playoff team who also happens to be this very skilled passer and perimeter player has said, you know what, we have a guy that's better at those things, so I'll just go stand in the dunker spot and rebound. He's accepted that role, and now the two have an incredible chemistry that culminated last night with the weirdest 5-5 pick and roll I've ever seen in my life that was equal parts awkward and beautiful.
I've watched it 100 times, and my favorite part of it is just actually when Jokic makes the move to get open. Like just when he's running around on the perimeter, yes. I'm like, he's so squirrely and languid and or whatever. Like it's so weird looking watching him fight to get open.
Is he smooth or not smooth? Because I can't decide if he's the smoothest player in the NBA or the least smooth. He's a weird combination of both.
I think our problem there is we're running into a couple different interpretations of the word smooth.
Okay.
Like he's not smooth as in suave or cool.
Right.
Like he's gangly and ridiculous. But, some of those, the passes he makes and the way he moves, he moves in a smooth manner where I guess it's very fluid.
It's tough. It's confusing. It's a weird paradox that he's equally smooth and unsmooth at the same time.
Yeah, so Jokic is definitely going to make the All-Star game. I've seen some, I feel like I've still seen some people wringing their hands about it, like worried, like we're going to get snubbed. Like, no. He's definitely making the All-Star game. Where do you think he should rank as an obviously biased homer in the MVP discussion?
Oh, I think I can be objective about this. I don't think he's the MVP, and I hope he gets votes, because to me that's the win. That's the success. Is like, oh hey, look, he got a couple votes. He came in 5th, or something like that. The MVP, when you talk about value, a lot of what we're talking about is this is a guy who dominates the ball and dominates the team. And I think what's great about Jokic is he's sort of an anti-MVP. He's so valuable to the team, but he's valuable in part because he just sets the table and allows other guys to flourish. And I don't know that you reward that with the MVP label. It's sort of a weird thing in that what he does is so valuable by taking a step back and being less valuable than say a Harden or a Giannis. So I don't know that he's the MVP. I just hope he gets talked about, because being talked about for a guy like him is as important as actually winning it right now.
I mean, 2-time MVP Steve Nash might have an argument for setting the table, deferring to others.
But the ball was in his hands more. One of the things that's so good about Jokic as a center is different than a point guard is you change the geometry of the court and you position the defenders in a way that, a lot of what he does is he'll run a couple pick and rolls. The defense will make some switches, and then he'll be like, okay, Jamal Murray, here you go. Now you take over, you make a basket because I just made things 40% easier on you. Now, Jamal Murray still has the talent to do that, and that's why people say, oh, he's got these other great players, and it's true. But that's different than Steve Nash, pick and roll, crossover, ball in his hands for 15 seconds, and he throws the alley-oop. So that's why I say it's just a little different with Jokic.
I think he has a legitimate argument if you go for the sports writer, I guess capital S sports writer, like arc of this is the best team if they end up with the 1 seed type thing. Like this guy is he's leading his team and scoring, rebounding, assists, steals and blocks. I don't know if he's probably going to get passed by Millsap or somebody, but you have that argument where Giannis Antetokounmpo, the prohibitive favorite, I think still. If they don't finish first, if Harden, we now have this news that Clint Capella is out for a little bit. If they end up kind of down in the standings, or just maybe where they are at right now, like the 4 or 5 around there, I think then you can make a legit argument that you could come down to Jokic or Giannis Antetokounmpo. Not saying that if you're starting a team, would you pick Jokic over Giannis? Right. Not saying what's a better player, but if you come up with whatever your sports writer definition of MVP. It could be Jokic.
I think he has to score. So last night he had 40, and it raised his per game average to 19.7 or 19.8. I think if he gets above the 20, it's a stupid benchmark, but if he gets above the 20 point per game threshold, it just feels like he's more of a scorer. And then the 3-point percentage, he's been a little bit off this year. I think he's somewhere around 32, 33%. If he starts to knock those down a little bit more consistently, then maybe the numbers will just look a little bit better. 20, 11, and 7.5, but on 50-40, shooting splits, then people might start to go for it more.
Yeah, you're gonna win over your Zach Lowe's if you get that 3-point percentage up, because then they'll start building that narrative like, and he's shooting 40% or
exactly.
or whatever. Maybe if he had a gimmick, maybe if he had an MVP mustache.
Oh my God.
Something you gotta latch on to something.
I don't think he can grow a mustache though.
Yeah,
so that plan we're out on.
He probably can't. Looking at the rest of the West, and I guess a big story is Capella being out for the Rockets, and then DeMarcus Cousins is returning for the Warriors. What is as a national NBA observer, which you do sometimes, I know on the Locked On NBA feed. What's your take on what Boogie is going to do to the Warriors upon his return?
First of all, who's he replacing? They lack size inside, and when they've been dominated by teams that can really punish them on the glass, as Denver has done over the last couple of years. Denver has just out rebounded them by 20 rebounds per game in their matchup. So I think he can shore up some of that. And DeMarcus Cousins might be the closest to Jokic in terms of the ability to play a perimeter-oriented, facilitating role. And if I would love to see, not love it from a Nuggets perspective, but just from a fan of basketball, I would love to see him not be a scorer when he comes back and just kind of be what Andrew Bogut was to that team, which was sort of the fulcrum of the offense up top, because he's better than Bogut as Bogut was a very good passer, but he's better as like a shooter and a passer from that position. And the post-ups, all the stuff inside and down on the block, I think he can just slowly ease back into that over the next season or two. And if he does that, then I think he elevates them and they're going to win the championship again. But we've seen this so often. Guys like the things they're really good at. And DeMarcus Cousins, a very good low post scorer, but every post up that he takes is a shot that KD and Curry and Clay are not taking from beyond the perimeter. And so he can really ruin them. I would bet that he is more of a mild upgrade for them, but not like a huge difference maker. But I do see the argument where he just plays the facilitator role and elevates them to a whole new level.
I really like the thinking about the Warriors as in like we have this well-oiled machine. It's going great. Let's bring in a chaotic, uncertain element and just, it could be an upgrade or it could destroy everything. Let's do it. Let's go with it. Like, I love it for the sake of the entertainment of the NBA. Like, thank you, Warriors, for doing this.
I just don't buy into the Warriors are such a neurotic team right now because they're so clearly better when they're playing the true chaos style of basketball, of which Steph Curry is sort of the focal point. Kevin Durant elevates their ceiling, but man, they just seem less like themselves than ever. That's why I think you come back and you have KD who wants to play his way, Curry, Clay, and Draymond who want to play their way, and then maybe DeMarcus who wants to play their way. There's a real possibility for true chaos with this team, which I think would be funny.
And also, I feel like there's if Antetokounmpo tails off, if Harden tails off at all, it's going to be tough for them without Capella. Like Curry, when he was playing, was heading back to MVP level. His numbers are better than they've ever been. And so if there's a Curry MVP push and if DeMarcus Cousins starts taking shots away from him, I don't know. Just looking for reasons to shake up the Warriors. Let's
start that narrative. I love it.
Yeah, let's get it going. Let's get that rift forming. Where do you think the Nuggets finish? What's your prediction for seed? Can they? Because the Warriors don't care. And they will be incorporating DeMarcus Cousins. And then you got, the other teams at the top of the West. You can hold them all off, I think. Like, you got the Thunder who are super good. And then it's like, there's a little bit of a drop-off.
With this Capella injury, Houston was a team that I thought was probably a pencil in for a top four. They were already there, and it looked like they were going to be there to stay. But with them dropping off now, I think there's three teams that have a strong inside track to finishing in the top three, and that's Golden State, Oklahoma City, and Denver. Just because of the experience factor, because of the injuries they've already had, and because the schedule in the final month of the season for Denver is really, really tough. They play most of their toughest games in that month. I think Denver's going to be the 3 seed behind Oklahoma City and Golden State, and that's a huge win. I think everybody's most optimistic outlook for Denver peaked at a 3 seed. So the fact that they have what I would call a realistic shot at 1, 2, or 3 is really cool. And I don't have the standings in front of me, but in the loss column, here I have them. They are now 5 games up of the 4 seed.
Yeah.
It's 5 in the loss column. 5 losses up is quite a big lead for this point of the season. I just think it's theirs to lose one of those 3 spots.
I feel like with the Thunder having an incredibly difficult schedule in their second half, I think it's like they had the easiest schedule through the first half of the season, which is almost impossible for a Western Conference team to have. It seems like, the Nuggets could hold them off. They're 3 games up on them. I think it feels like this could be the 1 or 2 seed season. Who don't you want to face in the first round of the playoffs?
There's no doubt in my mind it's the Houston Rockets. Denver hasn't beaten them since I think 2013 or something, or 2014. So they've really struggled. James Harden, nobody can guard him anywhere in the league, but especially on Denver. And so that's one that I think Denver will struggle with. The Lakers are probably the one team I would least like to face, in part because LeBron is just so good. For the same reasons that James Harden gives Denver problems, spread, pick and roll, LeBron would do the exact same thing. And I think it might look a little bit like last year's Raptors series, where one team is clearly better 2 through 15, but that number one guy is going to score 40 points every night and hit every game winner.
Yeah, that would actually kind of be disheartening, I think, for the Nuggets to finish, as like even the like what do they finish as the 1 seed, and then you get LeBron James, who's made 8 straight finals, and you're like, that's not cool.
And the LeBron legacy is just like ripe for that moment,
Right.
Oh yeah, 8 seed, now here he goes. But the one thing I will say that's kind of eased my fears about it, because I came into the season anxious for that, like, oh God, the Nuggets are going to lose to the Lakers at some point in the playoffs this year, aren't they? The one thing I'll say is Lakers fans, and my buddy Anthony Irwin, good friend, I host Locked On NBA with him on Fridays. He's been telling me for years about how the Lakers' young core is better than Denver's, and they do things the right way out in LA, and that's why they have all these. And it's just so fun because no matter what happens going forward, everybody kind of is very, very aware now that the Lakers just, they're the wealthy heirs that just everything falls into their lap now, and there's no disguising this, they do things the right way narrative.
I don't know who said it. I think it was a Celtics writer who was pointing out, like, if contracts in the future didn't matter, if you just needed to win a basketball game this week, or this season, like, would you rather have any of the Lakers' young core or Marcus Morris? And I was like, oh, yeah, Marcus Morris, he's better than those guys.
Marcus Morris is actually good, it turns out. What are the Lakers without LeBron this year? I mean, they're probably better than the Suns record-wise, but I
don't think they are. I think LeBron's teams over the last however many seasons without him are 7-29, and the Lakers just losing to the Cavs. That's dark.
What's interesting about it is dark. And what's interesting about that, though, is this is why I talk about Jokic as sort of an anti-MVP, is LeBron's teams have relied on him so much, and this isn't his fault. He's great. They should rely on him. But I think it's not a coincidence that his teams always look completely lost when he's not on the floor. And this is where I do think Jokic is a little bit different in that, this is going to sound so corny, but in some ways he empowers and improves the players around him so that they can survive without him, or they can just kind of flourish. He puts them in position to flourish, and that makes him not the MVP, but it also makes him really valuable.
That's a good point. All right, final question. You brought up a comparison earlier of Jokic's passing ability or his play calling to Peyton Manning. Obviously, Jokic is very accurate, very smart passer, but who do you think has the stronger arm? Nikola Jokic this year or Peyton Manning in his final season on the Broncos?
I got to give it to Peyton Manning because of the PEDs, but outside of that, and I'm a Peyton Manning guy, but come on, let's be honest. But accuracy though is an interesting one because Jokic, man, that one-handed full court pass he had on the money with like the split decision, that guy. Oh,
it was pretty.
I feel like every game or every other game, he adds a new top 50 highlight, to his all-time highlight reel. And that's what's so fun about him. It's more than any player right now. I feel like when I watch him, I see something I never seen before.
But even on Jokic's that full court pass, that one-hander, it was very soft and loopy. And that was kind of like, there's old noodle arm Peyton Manning. Not a lot of zip on that one. Anyway, Adam, thanks a bunch for coming back on. What do we have coming up from you that we can look forward to?
I don't know.
Okay. Sounds good.
Strong plug.
Yeah, go to Denver Stiffs as you continue your war against Bill Simmons.
Let's do it.
That's great. Well, thanks, buddy. Thanks for coming on, and I look forward to talking with you again soon.
Thanks again.
All right, thanks to Adam. Always a joy to have him on one of my favorite NBA Twitter people. If you need Nugget stuff, make sure you check out Locked On Nuggets. You can check out him hosting Locked On NBA on Fridays. All kinds of good stuff. Support him. If you want to support our show, you can do that a couple of ways. You can write us a 5-star iTunes review. You can go to patreon.com/fastbreakbreakfast. Step up to the plate and support this program. Or you can just use the code FASTBREAKBREAK, same as the Twitter handle, when you're buying your tickets on SeatGeek. If you use the SeatGeek app or SeatGeek.com, enter the promo code FASTBREAKBREAK. You get $20 off your first purchase, and we get a cut. It's pretty sweet. So you can support us that way, and you yourself get $20 off your ticket purchase at SeatGeek. All right. You can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. You guys are the best. Thanks for listening. And remember, breakfast is the most important thing.
Yeah, never apologize for being G&G. Fast break, man. You understand?
Buying tickets online for sports and concerts has never been easier thanks to SeatGeek. They've created an amazing app and website that makes ticket buying easier than it has ever been. They pull all the tickets available on other sites into one place so you never miss a deal, and more importantly, you aren't wasting time. You can even set alerts for upcoming events, and they'll let you know if ticket prices fall. Even better, every ticket on SeatGeek is ranked based on value, so you can immediately find underpriced seats. And before you buy, you can use SeatGeek's detailed maps to see the view from your seat. I've got the SeatGeek app on my phone, and I use it all the time. SeatGeek is always honest and upfront about the price. You get to see the full ticket price from start to finish, and they never surprise you with big fees at the checkout page. Now, here's the best part about SeatGeek for all of you out there listening to the Fast Break Breakfast. My listeners who make their first SeatGeek purchase get a $20 rebate. And to get it, all you have to do is download the free SeatGeek app, go to the settings tab and click add a promo code, then enter promo code FASTBREAKBREAK. SeatGeek will then send you $20 after you've made your first ticket purchase. It does not get any easier than that. So download the free SeatGeek app and enter promo code FASTBREAKBREAK today.